Hi, this is Ria Flanagan. I'm the host of Happiness Playbook series, and that comes from my book, which I like to always kind of remind people of, which helps regulate the nervous system and gives you daily practices that also increase levels of happiness. So I'm excited today to be hosting the fabulous and interesting, and I just can't wait to get to know her better, honestly, is Denise G Lee. And she is a life coach dealing with leadership and healing. And so, yeah, she has an interesting journey. I had my first book signing, and all of this has been really about connection and meeting new people. And that's been the highlight of publishing a book and doing a podcast and just learning and growing. That's what I'm into. So, and sharing with our community, providing information, education, just tips and tools. That's what we're here for. So, Denise, tell us a little bit about what brought you into your role as a life coach. And we had talked a little bit earlier, so I know a little bit. Can you share a little bit about that journey with us today?
Ria, mad props to you birthing your baby. Okay. Okay. Just mad props to you and birthing your baby.
She got a little award. Mama's proud.
Congratulations. Congratulations. For a lot of us, I'm a mother myself, and I definitely take pride in nurturing and incubating a life that is transformative, not just in my world, but everyone else that it touches. So I definitely know it took a lot of bravery and honesty and vulnerability to get your message out there, especially juggling your practice, juggling your babies, juggling everything else that you've got in between.
I actually shut that down a few times. Like it does it takes courage to be seen in the world, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you and I can relate in the idea of trying to have it all put together, right? Trying to help, trying to lead, trying to serve, and not really feeling as if we are getting everything back in return. And just flee. It's like a bank. Like, I've done a lot of withdrawals. When am I going to get a deposit back in? Okay.
That's
I need a deposit.
Yeah, that's right, because we can't sustain on empty, right? Like, if you don't fill up that gas tank, you're not going to be able to keep going. I mean, that's really real. I mean, and you bring something up that I think is, for mothers juggling careers, juggling, all of it. It's wonderful and it's a privilege and I'm grateful. And there's days that it's like I just don't want to get out of bed,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's for real.
Yeah, it is.
So I want to give my quick 2-minute overview about myself professionally so everyone knows that I'm worth actually listening to.
Yes.
So if you're saying a black woman with a fro, what she got to talk about?
Hey, this one's got things. She got things.
So the short answer is I worked in corporate America for about 10 years, had a lot of unrealized trauma that I didn't address with, almost got fired, decided to go and launch a personal training business. Didn't really find success in that, did business coaching because what am I going to use all this business information for? I was leading multi-million-dollar organization. What am I going to do now next? And I realized as I was giving people structure to run their business as a business coach, wait a minute, their life issues were never being addressed. So as a point of learning and educating myself, as well as my clients, I realized I was a better life coach than a business coach because I realized how people run their business is a mirror to how they run their lives.
There you go. Yeah. Or people use their hide in their work, right? Workaholism. They try to overwork, try to get value from work. Definitely. Yeah. And so in that journey for you, you feel like you're in your like authentic life purpose? Do you feel like you found your calling? Do you feel fulfilled in this work you're doing?
I had a really wonderful healer that told me you're supposed to play at your work and work at your play. And I feel like every day I show up and I connect with beautiful souls like yourself and talk about things from the heart, I'm at play for sure.
That's really brilliant. I mean, that's really what it's about. I mean, if we can go to work and it doesn't feel like work, it feel, that then you're right where you need to be. And that's
Yeah.
your sign. So that's really cool. And And yeah, and so yeah, what is it that like you find yourself like I know we all I think when I first became a counselor, like I'm like, I can treat anyone, I think, like I don't know. I was like I had to be in it. I had to try it, work with different people, different ages, different, things, learn new modalities, all of that, and then really figured out what is my niche, right? What do I do? And
Yeah.
so it sounds like that these business leaders, right? These people
Mhm.
that are out in the world that this is your play, this is your space, right? Where you shine with these people. And do you find that you're guiding them back to their authentic selves or clearing out the clutter of trauma, like all of that, or how would you describe it as you're taking someone through their journey?
That's a good question, Ria. I don't think I'm guiding anyone. I'm just reflecting a mirror.
Oh, great.
Here's your mirror. Here's what you need to fluff this up. Do you need to push this back? Do you need to tuck something in? Do you need to dust something off? Because I know in your work and your practice that I can't lead you nowhere you don't want to go. I can't. Energetically, physically, I can't drag nobody to that.
You can walk with them. You can walk with them.
I can observe. I can give comments. It's kind of like think about map. Well, map. I'm too old. We both too old to be talking about map. Okay, Google Maps,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Well, Siri is not. You start veering off the road. Siri's not, it's still all right if you want to go off and do some other stuff. It's not missing a beat.
Yeah.
We'll just recalculate and give you some other instructions, but it's up to you to navigate yourself to where you need to be. And I think that's kind of like, I mean, I know you can speak to your work, obviously, but I think my work is literally saying, hey, I'm just reflecting and giving you some signposts, but it's up to you to see how fast or slow you want to go.
Yeah. And it's interesting because sometimes people can equate coaching with this, like, all right, yeah. Like I go to hot yoga sometimes and I'm always really proud of myself when I make it. And I always feel better after. But some of the best teachers are, they tell you each muscle, like, okay, yeah, move this and be aware of each, like, part of your body. And I'm like, man, they're really good coaches. They kind of like really nail these little tiny micro muscles to focus on and the breath and all these things. And so sometimes we really equate coaching with this, like, go, go, go. And this isn't very specific. Right. And it sounds like your style is not what I first think of when I think of a coach, right? You're more giving reflections, you're more giving that feedback, observation, but like, and the mirror is powerful for people, right? Because we see ourselves through our own trauma goggles or whatever, right? And to get that feedback is powerful for people too.
I don't want to misrepresent anybody or any coaches for saying this.
Oh,
What I'm definitely a hard ass. I definitely will ride you if that's where you want to go.
got
I
it.
mean, I spent about 10 years, well, I shouldn't say 15 years doing personal training. So I knew the language of how to coach people in a more assertive way. That language had never departed from me, right? But at the same time, I understand that a business owner is already putting tons of pressure on themselves, schedules, agendas, goals, metrics. So I already know they already have focus, right? Like the focus is not the issue. They're doing great on that. They're not good at releasing the pressure that they tell themselves all day, every day. Because when you're running a practice, right? Nobody runs a practice on a whim. Okay. Nobody does that because it's so much easier to be associate, stroll in the office, clock in, clock out. Now I'm sitting here trying to manifest not just a practice, but a mode of healing that's unique and different from what everyone else has done. Because I would have just laid up on somebody else's practices. I could have done that. So you got the pressure about trying to fill the industry gap. You got the pressure of trying to meet the expectations of all your mentors and your coaches and everybody else that guided you, right? And then you got the pressures, the financial pressures of, oh my goodness, like if I don't do this, how am I going to make this rent this month?
That's real. And sometimes you gotta pay people and you're like, okay, I gotta, what am I not gonna do this week? So, it's a lot to juggle.
Yeah. So I can't sit here and say to you, Ria, like, oh, I'm sitting there and I'm going to reflect back just everything all the time. Like, no. If you have, I was talking with a client the other day. I'm like, if you need to fire someone that's not aligned with your vision or having some conversations are uncomfortable, we need to do that. We need to practice that. And we need to hammer your language down until you feel comfortable about having your authentic voice replicated in all of your documents and all of the way you communicate internally and externally in your organization. So that side of me exists. I don't want anyone getting it twisted. But at the same time, I don't want to add more pressure to the load of responsibilities that you've got going on. So it's a balance.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good to see, right? Because you're really dealing with people with a lot on their plate, right? You're really having to, right? And so you're creating, it sounds like you create that space to like, what do they need from you? Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's different for sure, for sure. And I always think of myself as a chameleon. Whatever you need to do
Mhm.
to make sure that the person feels safe. And I know you do that in your practice well. Like, I want you to feel safe where you're at. Go as fast or as slow as it feels comfortable. Because I can't help until you feel safe.
That's right. I think you nailed it there. I mean, safety I always say too, right? Like, not everyone, I'm not the therapist for everyone. I'm not the coach for everyone. I'm not the podcast for whatever for everyone. You got to find that person for you. You got to find the fit because if you don't feel safe, we're not going to get anywhere. I mean, that's number one for sure, for sure. So any things that you use to help, especially clients, like I find a lot of clients that don't ever really feel safe, that they've had, I think we all had trauma, but a lot of clients that never really have even know what that calm is. Maybe they're like I work with also a lot of doers, a lot of people that juggle a lot of things. And so sometimes it's just starting to teach them, what does safety in the body even feel like? What does peace even
Mhm.
feel like? When was the last time you felt safe? When was the last time you felt at ease? Right. And sometimes it's even just practicing that, Is there anything that you use with your clients, or do you find some of that with the clients you work with that they don't really have that safe place, or are you building that with them?
Most people who come to work with me have read or listened to hours of either my podcast on the Introvert Entrepreneur podcast, or
Okay.
they read one of my articles or whatever. And I do that not just because I like communicating, right? I do that to build in that's a safety net doesn't just show up out of nowhere. Okay. It begins from their desire to learn, their
Mhm.
curiosity, right? Their willingness to invest in time. So I can't create safety unless they've done the part to start building in that foundation. So assuming they've done that,
Got
right?
it. Yes.
Right? You
Yeah.
don't want anyone strolling into your practice and say, I'm an alcoholic and I need help. I don't know what you do. Help me. Like, I would hope they would do, everyone who's listening, you do your due diligence to see whether or not this person actually is worth their weight.
Yes. Like read
Their
the bio.
whatever.
Read the bio. Yeah. Watch the podcast for sure. And that's actually one of the reasons now too. What's really cool. I have a course that I would give clients, but it's more expensive. Now the book is cheaper. And I will tell them, like, get the book, even if you get the $2.99 on Kindle version, like, you know what I mean? Because there's so much information in there. There's so many activities that will help build safety in the body, help you, right? Start grounding, help learning about boundaries, learning about all these things that it's going to help enhance the work we do. So yeah, so there's a certain level, right? They got to come to you with that.
Yeah. Assuming you've done all that part, right? So the next part about the safety is, what do you want and not want? For a lot of people who are go-getters, perfectionists, we're so good at pushing through our own boundaries. We don't even know where we begin or end. So let's clarify what that looks like for you. Do you want to go into this topic? Do you not want to go into this topic? Do you understand the work that I do? Does that conflict with what you expect healing looks like?
Expectations, healthy and realistic expectations of the work, right? Being clear with the client. Absolutely. Like what are we doing and what is the expectation? Because, we don't want to, oversell and underdeliver to our clients. That's not helpful, you know?
I mean, yeah, I mean, think about when you go to In-N-Out Burger, right? And then you're like, I want a monster style. Well, what does a monster style mean? What like what toppings do you want? Like, I want an animal style. Well, what does it mean? Like, they all they think of what therapy healing is what they saw on TV
Mm-hmm.
or what their family or what their cousin Jimmy or whoever said that.
Mm-hmm.
So we also, as part of the expectations, let's clarify what your understanding is.
I think a good thing I hear a lot, right, is when is it going to be done? Right. And I'm like, what do you mean? You're like, this is life, right? Like, there's always going to be layers to this work, right? There's no one and done. It's not, I got it all together. I got it all figured out. I'm done. Like, no, man. Like, this is about support. This is about working through sometimes long, complex, lifelong trauma. If you have a toxic family system, right, you have limiting beliefs, you have all these things. I'm not going to do a magic wand or do a trick and you're going to be all figured out, right? Like that expectation of, this coaching, this therapy, whatever it is, it takes time, right? It takes time to change because change is not easy.
Yeah, I mean, and I want everyone who's listening or watching, however you're consuming this media, that I am not a replica, nor should be for a therapist like yourself, Ria. Like I'm the baton comes off, and then you come to talk with me because I'm assuming that you've dealt with your enmeshment issues. I'm assuming you've talked about dissociation. I'm assuming you've been able to be clear about your boundary validation. I'm making all of that clear, right? So
They've already read my book, so they're good to go. They're ready for you, right?
yeah, because I truly, so the healing journey is multifaceted, right? And there is expiration dates. Like, there's expiration dates on milk. There's expiration dates on the people that you deal with. I mean, the healers that I work with in the beginning of my journey, it's out suited for what I need today. It's kind of like I'm trying to put on a dress that I wore when I was 18 years old. Come on now.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh,
I had a baby. Things were shrinking and stretching. And
yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to go to a 22-year-old fresh out of their master's degree for therapy because, you know what I mean? Like, I'm at a place of like dealing with people with like multiple cultural, like all these, I need my own person who, right, has all the somatic work, touch work, all these things now, right? It changes too, I think, as we push ourselves in our work, we also need that support, so we don't burn out. So we, you know what I mean? Having our community to support us in our work too.
yeah. And I think having conversations like this right now, it's healing within itself because don't be mistaken. Like, even when I think about it on my podcast, I heal as much as my guests share.
Totally. I mean, that's it. We're right. I always think, and I do really like Melody's work, but we're both right here. You know what I mean? Like I'm never here with my client. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're walking together and we're working through it together. And I've got these tools and I've got these things, but really the client knows. That's what, sometimes because, oh, I need your advice. I said, no, what we're going to do is actually help you answer that question. We're going to get into, because really the answers are within all of us, right? So I'm not giving somebody an answer. I'm helping them get into their body, get into what they really want and who they really are to answer that question, right? And it is. And right, as the person with the other person right here, I have to be in my body too. I have to be connected too.
It's really hard. And like, maybe you can echo on this experience too, when someone's talking and they're talking about a struggle and you're time traveling right back to what you experienced too. I mean, I don't know if you've been in that moment and you're like, oh, wait. It's not 1995.
No, we're quiet. Got to stay with the choir, and then we're gonna go do my own work after that, right? Like, you gotta have those boundaries too, because for sure, I mean, you don't know. That's the thing about trauma. You don't know until it comes up sometimes, right? Like it's bad because what we do is we kind of suck it up, I sort of think about like, put it in that chest, lock it away, throw it in the middle of the ocean, let it, like, I don't want to look at that. I don't want to feel that. I want to touch that. Right. And then somebody brings something up and all of a sudden that box just opened up. Right. So, but then we know that it's there so we can go and do EMDR, SE or IFS or whatever the therapist does that you work with. Right. And I could go deal with that. But you're right. Yeah. You got to stay with the client. Right. You got to stay with the client. So it's so important that we do our own work. I mean, it's essential because, you can't be present if you're having your own trauma reaction for sure. For sure.
Yeah. I mean, like for those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, like, so imagine you're sitting there when you're talking with your therapist and you're mentioning something and they're like circling. Well, when I was going through that and when I was experiencing that, like they're reenacting trauma and you're just, you're right there with them. And I think and I've experienced this not even knowing as a patient, I didn't even know what was happening. And I can inadvertently carry the wounds of like they're transferring their wounds onto me in my own healing session.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's like boundaries, right? Like we've got to have those like I always describe to my clients, right, as I'm teaching boundaries and working with them is like really feel your boundary, like put your hands out in the world and like feel it, picture it. And when you're in a situation where somebody's got a lot of trauma or you're feeling triggered, you got to make that boundary like steel sometimes, right? You got to really like have that space and not take it in because that's a huge piece for anyone, right? When we're working with others is not is protecting ourselves and our, and not, what was the great example is that we all have empathy, right? We can all relate to all the different emotions, but empathy is a percentage, right? It's like oh yeah, I'm with you. I can sit with you. I can yes, I know pain too, right? But it's not carrying their pain, right? And it's not holding their pain and it's not, because that doesn't help them. And then it's too heavy and then we can't be present with them. But I think the
Yeah.
thing that a lot of caretakers do, right, is they don't even know they're doing it. And they're, people that really have a lot of empathy and they're really, tuned in to others, they can often carry it, which doesn't help the other person. And it's burnout for them, right? It could be really disastrous. And so those boundaries, right, is that, and that empathy, that just that small percentage that I can feel it, I can be with you, but I'm not going to try to carry it for you because that doesn't help you.
No. And for everybody who's listening, this is definitely something that I wish someone told me when I was looking for a healer, a helper, was someone who could hold the space, but not be immersed in it.
There it is. Right. Yeah. They have their own healthy boundaries for sure. And there's plenty of healers out there that are great at what they do, but maybe suffering because they're not holding those boundaries for themselves. And here's the thing to mention too, right? Like my daughter woke me up, she's 4 and I don't know, like super early this morning. And I was like, oh, it's going to be harder today, right? It's just going to be a little bit harder today because I'm tired, right? So if I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm hungry, right? Like if I've got a lot to do in a small amount of time, it's knowing I'm going to have to work harder on my boundaries today because I'm tired. That's it. Right. And so just having that awareness can be helpful.
You mentioned something that I wanted to dig into, and I remember I read this somewhere. They were talking about the calendar around the menstrual cycle, and I forgot all the different, the luteal, some other. So forgive me, guys, who are in the gynecological space that knows far better than me. But anyway, for a lot of us ladies, right, 14 days leading up to our menstrual cycle, a lot of us we're having water retention. We're feeling irritable. We're feeling headaches. We're doing like regardless of everything else is going on. Why are you planning a launch during this time frame? Why are you trying to book extra appointments during the time frame? Just your body.
Brilliant, right? Thank you for saying that out loud because how many of us, and living in a culture often that it doesn't, right? If you're working for someone else, you have to just do it. You just have to show up. Doesn't matter what's going on with your body. You got to do the presentation, the lecture. It's your job. You got to go. And just being like, man, that was a big piece for me of moving to my own practice. Like I was like, that's it. Like I'm going to honor myself. And like, if I have to reschedule my clients because I'm not feeling like I can hold that boundary, then I'm going to do it.
proved my point. You proved exactly my point. We have to cultivate a lifestyle that matches and mirrors what our body needs.
Oh, well said.
I don't meet no more than 2 to 3 clients a day. I don't have more than 2 hours of podcast a day. I don't care if somebody says, I want to talk with you. I baked in my schedule times for rest. And as leaders, that is essential. It's a non-negotiable.
Yes, yes. And I think that so many times people are overworking, trying to meet these goals or these expectations in their mind, right? And actually that's the thing that's keeping them from having the productivity or having, right, the experience that they want to be having, because they think that that's the answer. And it really isn't. Like what you're saying is so true. If we're in connection with our body and we're creating a schedule that our bodies can be in, you know, then we're going to be productive and we're going to have success because we're honoring ourselves. It's like you can't, again, the oxygen mask, right? If you're on the plane, you got to put it on before your baby. And I get that might feel counterintuitive, but the truth is you're not going to get it on the baby if you don't have it on you. So it's the same thing. It can't show up for clients and be dead inside. That's not going to work, right?
Yeah. And to your point, I'm thinking another thing is that I see so many busy women. They're taking their work everywhere. They've got their handbooks in their bathroom. They got books and things they want to read on their nightstand. They got all these to do. They've got all these checklists all scattered around. They got things buzzing. No wonder you can't work because you're overwhelmed from sensory overstimulation.
That's real. And that too, right? Like there is this sort of toxic doing culture of, like, well, I'm doing all these things and that's so great. And everybody's like, yeah, that's amazing. How do you do it? And they're getting the outside validation from doing. And really, if you turn that on its head, right, is like, how are you abandoning yourself in that? How are you abandoning yourself? How are you actually disconnected from your body? Right. So it's a numbing out sometimes. Right. So you got to look at that. We got to look at, am I overdoing? And I hear you. Like I made a decision right away. And I know you probably saw I had to reschedule you and all this stuff. But I was like, oh my, I didn't expect to get so many people to come on the podcast. And my schedule just filled up right away. And then I had a calendar issue. People were like double booking. I was like, oh my goodness. Oh my God. And then I was like, nope, boundaries. One a week. That's it.
True. And you know what? There's a desire for, if you have gone through a lot as a professional, if you have gone against the grain, there's this thought process that if I don't show up 24/7 without any breaks, people will not think of me as worthy. If people think of me as worthy, then I don't believe I have worth. And I want to let everybody who's listening to understand that's a lie. Because look, the moment you dropped it, somebody gonna fill your shoes quickly. You knew that when you were working your job, that energy still applies when you're dealing with people as an entrepreneur. Sweetheart, they will find other ways.
That's so big. The belief system piece, right? If we don't believe that we're enough or that we're worthy, then we're constantly in that perfectionism cycle of trying to prove and look what I'm doing. I'm worthy now, right? I'm worthy. I got the award. And I did it earlier. Look, I got the award in my book, right? It's like, okay, Ria, it's okay. It's good if you have it or don't have it, right? Like it's okay. You don't have to go to that place. I don't have to get 15 million awards. I don't have to, right? So there's this piece of it's enough, right? And if we believe that we're enough and that we're worthy, we can stop that overdoing and trying to get outside validation.
I know. Yeah. I know you've done the work about the Freud was the id, the ego, the superego got transformed by Jung, and it got big parent, child, and adult. And for those of you who don't know what the heck I'm talking about, the different ego states, though we have a critical parent that is running rampant in our head about do, must, should, want, never, stop, worthy, and never voice. We try to numb it out with work. We try to numb it out with alcohol. We try to numb it out with awards. We try to numb it out with things to do. If we can shut it up. But in a weird kind of twist, by indulging that parental voice, we actually amplify it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And there's this piece too, be it that you had that critical parent voice, or maybe there was no attention unless you were achieving too, right? Maybe there was that lack of parent just abandonment piece too. And hey, if I do enough, they'll notice me or love me. Maybe I'll be lovable then, right? So
Yeah.
either way, it's not gonna fix the problem, because then again, you end up abandoning yourself, which you're repeating that pattern of abandonment.
I'm just a big J-Lo fan. I'm not, okay? But earlier this year, I found myself listening to the documentary about Jennifer Lopez. And she sat there and she said, I was a middle child. And I didn't feel like no one ever paid attention to me. And I felt that if I noticed that I was really athletic. And if I just and I started getting awards, and people started paying attention to me. That's how she became a fly girl in Living Color. That's how she was able to be. Everyone says like she's the triple threat. She come by accident. She
Yeah.
was nurtured and incubated at a young age of like, please see me, for God's sake, see me.
Yeah. And she shares in one of the books she wrote about, even in her relationships, looking for that, looking for that love, looking for that. And, she's very vulnerable in some of her work, a lot of her work. And I really commend her for that, to be vulnerable about her stuff around, putting the guy first, even over her, right, over herself, or, just always thinking like she's going to get it in this next relationship, or whatever it is, and there's this piece of, wow, like you look at somebody that you think they got it all, they must have it all figured out. And no, none of us have it all figured out,
No, no.
that's okay. I think that's where it's relatable, right? We relate to each other. It's not relatable to be perfect, because that's a reality issue. Perfect isn't a real thing.
But you know what though, Ria? I don't know about you, but I like hanging around people who are really working above and beyond what is like standard. Because there are so many suspect healers, therapists, MDs, and you're sitting there, you're listening, like, this is not right. You need to refer out. You have no business doing this modality. You have no business talking about stuff because you're bleeding all on your patient. And you see the stuff and you're like, okay, I wanna see somebody else who's doing better, but they're driving you to a level that's not where you need to be energetically.
Yeah, share more about that.
I love people who are rock stars. Freaking love it. I love
Oh,
people. Go ahead, love.
for real. Okay, I get you. Yeah. Like people who are like really pushing it, like going all the way.
I'm trying to compete with somebody who's been at it almost as long as I've been alive. And then the point of trying to strive, because I admire them, I didn't realize that they formulated and perfected something that took years and decades in the process. And I see a lot of this with entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs in the healing, helping space. You're trying to catch up to people who've been at it, but longer than you've been alive. Why are you trying to bust your butt on this?
For real. I think that's yeah, because what is the saying, right? Like, well, everybody's a life coach, right? Like everybody, you don't have to have a credential, you don't have to have life experience. You could just be like, I'm a life coach. Like, okay, like, or I just coach. It's like, okay, hold on. And here's the other thing. One thing that, because I do like somatic coaching. I did like a 3-year program with Dr. Peter Levine, and all
I
of
love
that.
him, by the way.
Do you love him?
I love him, by the way.
I mean, he is amazing. Like I've watched him in person, like put his hand on somebody and just like the like literally the trauma was just coming out of her body, because he's so regulated. That man is so regulated to other level. But there's this piece, right? If you haven't done the work and then you're trying to bring someone, that's not okay. And there are coaches out there that don't have the ethics and the boundaries, or the right, or haven't done their own work on maybe intergenerational trauma or whatever it is, and they're out there and they're guiding people, or however they say it, right, and it's dangerous.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous.
People, you've got to know, like, they're putting faith in you, they're showing up and they're believing in you. If you don't have the ethics, the boundaries, right, that can be very dangerous. So making sure, right, like the person you're working with has the experience, has all of the ethics, the boundaries, clear about how they work and all those things, because I've met a lot of people that have had real damage from mentors and coaches and things, and it's not okay.
No, it's not okay. And I mean, I have over 600 podcast episodes. I have over 100 articles on burnout, stress management, somatic healing, trauma, re-traumatization. And I don't do that for kicks.
No.
Nobody's, you're just doing it for SEO purposes. No, like, no. How in the world can I talk to you about something I don't understand?
Yeah, you can't, and you can't walk someone through where you haven't gone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you can't, when I see that a lot, where you see people that maybe they have a PhD or, all these credentials and they look good on paper, and man, I got to see that person because they've got everything. And then in real time, they have not done their own work.
You can feel it. You feel that energy. Ria, you know what I'm talking about. You could just feel that energy and you're me.
I do work with a lot of counselors, right, that come to see me, and a lot of professionals, because they need that too. Like, that's the thing. Like, they need it. And I don't really refer out to counselors that don't do their own work. I just won't do it. I just won't do it. I'm like, if you're not doing your own work, I wouldn't trust a client with you, because we don't live in a world where there's peace on earth. Everyone's got some stuff.
It's so funny. I've been doing this, at least for my podcast, Ria, and I find it very, very helpful. I had this psychiatric nurse practitioner reach out to me, and I said, hey, like, did you refer out? And I said, I do, but can you tell me about your practice? Would you be willing to guest post on my website? I never heard. He was like, thanks for the information. I never heard from him again. Because if you can't articulate and be comfortable and vulnerable to share your ethos with others, like your thought process, what in the hell would I even try to refer out? I am not a MD. I'm not a therapist. I don't tell, and I love working with therapists because I stay in my lane. But at the same time, my ethics tells me I don't refer people out who don't have a body of language that backs up what they preach.
There you go. There you go. And that's powerful, because again, people are trusting you when they ask for a referral. Right. So again, if you're not really doing your homework and you're just giving whoever, that's not good. That's not okay. So there is this piece of, really making sure, and I say this even in my book too, right? Making sure you do your research on who you're going to go. It's so helpful to have a coach, a therapist, a guide, but make sure you do your homework on them, because it can be damaging. It can.
I mean, I've been traumatized by my coaches and therapists myself, so I can sit here and it is a wild, wild west. Even like, I understand that therapists got licensing and accreditation and governing bodies and whatnot, but even then, there's murky grounds where people just say and do any kind of stuff. I was thinking about one particular therapist hungry for some cash, put together some quick 3-day funnel thing for people who were going through complex PTSD. 3-day super vet. I'm dead serious. This world is crazy.
No.
I'm like, I'm going to send an anonymous email to a licensing, but this is what I'm trying to talk about to people, to understand that just because they have, licensed as a social worker, whatever credentials, call them by your name, that don't mean nothing. If you're feeling that energy of someone who is just bleeding out, that anxious, nervous energy, the desperation, the sense of I need to grab. I was thinking about one particular client. Girl, I got too many stories. I was thinking about one particular session I had where someone was like, before we talk, where's the copay? And that's just set the energy off the cuff. Like, this is all about that shudder. And I understand, to run a practice, you need some cash flow. Like, you need enough cash flow. Insurance is whack. Okay. So for those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, there's only a billable amount of money that you can charge. And if you want to work with them and network, you either accept this or go pound sand. And I get that. Right. And so that puts that pressure on you for real. Like, I need to get this amount of money and I need to have this volume in. Right. But if you're coming from this desperate, anxious energy, you will spill that toxicity out, knowingly or not, onto your people. And that's damaging.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's real. I really find having, like, it does help, like, even if it's just like a super part-time person, but even having like an assistant to kind of deal with that piece. So you're not right
Yeah.
in that with them, because that can be, I kind of try to not do that so much. And that's helpful, right? It's kind of a boundary a little bit. Like she'll deal with that part and we can just be focused on you. And that helps. Like thinking about other things. I just got a call service I'm setting up so that someone actually answers the phone. They got a person right away rather than having to like email and get back to them, because a lot of times therapists are always in session, so we can't be answering the phone to. Little pieces that create these boundaries that help us to just be more with the client and not in all that other stuff is helpful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, why are you copywriter? Why are you scheduling? Why are you taking and bill accounts receivable? Why are you doing that? You're like, oh, I can't afford nobody. You can afford a service online that can take all of that. You can create a patient portal for people to take care of that.
That's right.
Like talking to any service provider who tells me they have to work in their business. Like what I mean by that is the bolts and nuts of the business function. You are just someone who provides service, and everyone else provides the administration.
Outsource is brilliant because we don't have the time and energy to do like wear all the hats. How is that, right? We can't be multiple people. I know in the beginning maybe you start there, but quickly move out of that. You got to get out of that quickly, and absolutely, because it's just not, I think a lot of people don't realize starting a business and you're not just showing up doing your job. You do have to manage a lot, but you got to outsource. It's so much about asking for help, figuring out what that looks like, not trying to be all things to all people all the time. It's not gonna, it's burnout.
And I mean, I've dealt with healer, run the practices, and I wish that I had a talk with them before they opened up their shop. I wish we had like, if I had like a magic wand, for real, I wish I'd be like, let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the structure of your business before you start it. Because usually when I'm talking with folks, all hell broken loose, and we're just doing damage control.
That's right. And because they don't teach you, right, in counseling, right, in our master's or whatever program, they're not teaching you business. They're not teaching you how to set things up. They're not teaching you all that stuff. And it's critical, and I think a lot of practices don't stay open because of that. And it's unfortunate because they're great therapists, but maybe they just don't, right? They don't have that business piece, and why would they? So yeah, I think having that coach, having that guide, having the people to help them set things up, structure things in a way that's going to be functional so they can just show up and do what they do best. Someone once told me, a very successful person was like, yeah, one thing I would say is like, do what you love, right? Just like we started here today, do what you love to do and outsource everything else, because that way you're gonna be successful.
Yeah. I mean, don't ask me about marketing, girl. I'll send you someone else. Don't ask me about accounting. I'll send you somewhere else. I stick in my lane of business processing, but all I understand is from the lens of you're a human being that have experienced life. How do we have that meld together? And finding someone that can match what you need at that point, man, that's like a freaking game changer. It's like going to Nordstrom's and find the right Prada shoes to slip your fit. Everybody says, "Oh, the red Louboutin." No, Prada for me, honey. Prada for me.
No, wait, your shoe. It really is special. I mean, that is what I would say at the end of the day. Always like give yourself that support, because it is like you don't go back, right? Like once you find that Prada shoe, once you find what fits you, once you're like, why would I do that without that support? Why would I? When I put my book out in the world, like I got coaching. I'm working with like Steve Harrison, Jack Canfield, the Chicken Soup for the Soul. I mean, I'm like, I don't know how to. I'm not a book writer typically. I'm not an author. I'm not a book publishing company, right? And I think people are going out and everyone's writing a book and publishing it themselves and then thinking it's just going to sell itself. Like, hello, no, that's not how the world works. You got to market that baby. People don't realize that. So there's so much that goes into running any kind of business, as you know. And we're not meant to do it alone. We do need support. So I just appreciate you're out there doing your thing. I'm out here doing my thing. It was very, very cool to have you and get to chat, just to meet you. So, I'd love to maybe come on your show one day. I'm sure you're booked, to the nines, but I'd love to chat with you again. It was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Where can people find you?
So I've made it super easy for folks. Just take my name, Denise G Lee, take away all the spaces, and then add a .com, and there you're at it. You can even find me on Google. You don't even know what to say. Just write Denise Lee Coach. I'll show up on Google. Trust me.
Yeah, and check out, like, if you're resonating, it's like, go check out her podcast, like, see if she's the coach for you, listen to what she has to say. I think, again, like we were saying here, I mean, that's how we find the person. We resonate with them. We feel like they have something that I want. And so that's how we kind of know. So very cool, very great. So good to have you on. And just anything that you would share that like helps you stay balanced other than what we've already talked about, but just like anything just to raise your levels of happiness and just stay grounded in your life that you want to share with our guests or our watchers.
Drop the mask.
Hey,
Drop the mask. It never worked then. It's all cakey. It don't need no touch up. It just needs some wipe off. Just drop it. And you know exactly what I'm talking about for those of you guys who are listening. It ain't working. It never did work, love.
just be you.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Thank you so much. And again, this is, we're so happy to have you. Happiness is an Inside Job Playbook is out in the store. And, come back to the podcast Mondays, Happiness Hour at 5 p.m. We release new episodes. So cool to have Denise with us and check her out. Thank you so much. And